everyone. Thank you for tuning in with Dr. Leisha, the preacher. Okay. All right. So I like this topic. I was listening to a video, and the video began, I didn't finish it, but during the beginning, there was a conversation between, a man and a woman, and they were talking about the problems with connections, men and women being able to connect today. So I wanted to share some thoughts on why I believe that there are problems. Okay. Now, my explanation is a mixture of biblical principles, a mixture of scientific principles, a mixture of statistical relationship reporting, you know what I mean? And just from our personal experiences, you know, you are in relationships, I am in relationships in life, and all of that, your personal experience, what you observe other people do, what statistics report, what the Bible says, what the law of the land allows. The laws of the land weigh very heavy on how people conduct themselves. And the laws of the land are influenced by all these things: science, the Bible, society norms, things like that, people's personal experiences. So if you're a regular on my channel, then you know that I'm working on a theory. I'm developing my own theory, and it's called the eternal deficit of mankind. And maybe I'll just call it research, even if it's not worthy of the word theory and all that. It's just research, something that I've been studying. Please click like, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so that you can hear more about the eternal deficit of mankind theory that I'm developing on my channel. Okay, so back to the topic. I do have my chat open for those who want to chime in. Okay, when I think of a male, a man, a man, from birth, I know people can change on their journey and that's fine. But from birth, you know, scientifically, I think of an X and a Y chromosome, scientifically. Okay. Biblically, it's not clearly specified. The Bible doesn't speak scientifically as far as X and Y chromosomes and stuff. It just used the word man. But science created a way to make a distinction between men and women that can be explained in words. You know what I mean? Now, visually, we can see the difference between men and women visually. But when you're writing scientifically, You need additional details, additional ways to explain and break down what you're visually looking at, if that makes sense. And I could sound completely crazy, and that's fine too. So, in science, the X represents, like female, and the Y represents male. So, a male, has a Y and an X. So, he has female and male, if you will, parts to him. Like if you take a man and you take a woman and stand them right next to each other, they both have a head, they both have a neck, they both have two arms, two legs, 2 feet. There's a lot, there are a lot that's in common with a man and a woman, a male and female, just visually looking at them off the rip in the most obvious way. However, women, the female, has two X's, two X's. And as we know, an X represents female. So a female, a woman, is 100% that. There, there are no other letters. You know what I mean? There's two X's. I'm speaking scientifically. So, what makes the male and the female, because even the word female has the word male in it. I see someone's here and I see I have a like. Thank you. I could have more, but YouTube don't always show what's going on. But I want to thank you ahead of time, guys, for those who are liking the video so far and subscribing so far and hitting the notification bell. Thank you. And sharing the video too. So again, guys, I'm just speaking from my own mind, thought, heart, just expressing myself using other sources to communicate. Okay. So the man and the woman, the male and female, they both have the Y chromosome in common. In, co- in common. Okay. So that's why we have common knowledge of each other. That's why men feel like they can speak on women and women feel like they can speak on men. Scientifically, we share the same X chromosome. We have similarities. We have similar genetic makeup when it comes to the X chromosome. Basically saying we have common knowledge of each other, common access. That's why men can feel so confident in what they say about women. And that's why women can feel so confident about what we say about men, because we have common knowledge and access genetically to one another. With that being said, men have a Y chromosome and women have two X's. So that means there's hidden knowledge, hidden access, blocked activity, a blind side to one another. There's something that men have that women don't, and there's something that women have that men don't. Just naturally, genetically, by default, scientifically, with the X and Y chromosome explanation. Now, let me get back to the female for a second. With the woman having two X chromosomes, which means that she has common knowledge to a man, but then there's like this additional X chromosome. So, for whatever reason, women have a little bit more of whatever the X represents. Whatever the X represent, whatever a woman is, the female part is, we got a little bit more of it. And to me, now I'm switching gears like to biblically a little bit. Okay. So when I think of two X chromosomes biblically, when you translate scientific explanations, expressions to biblical, to me, two X chromosomes is similar to when Most High blew his breath into the earth. He blew his breath into two components of the earth, dust and mist. Dust is one of the X's in my mind. You know what I mean? And mist is the other X. Now, I could be like way off, but I'm just, speaking what's there because it's developing. It may not be accurate right now and it may not make any sense right now. And that's fine. It's developing work. So to me, the two X's represent Earth, like Mother Earth, female, you know, dust and mist, X and Y. X and X, you know, come from the same place. But when it comes to men, what they have in common with that dust and mist, you know, the Y chromosome, that's what we have in common is that dust and mist. Possibly, possibly. The Bible doesn't say how the woman was made. The Bible doesn't explain how the female was made. It just says how the man was made. But we know that the man and the woman have the X chromosome in common. And I'm just saying that that X chromosome is related to the earth. It's related to the earth. It consists of the water and the dirt. The water and dirt of the earth is that X chromosome to me, as I try to explain my eternal deficit of mankind theory. We owe Most High. We owe him. We owe him. So to me, women, Mother Earth, the womb, if you will, the womb of mankind, represents the double X's. So that's how we have that in common with men. The male, he has a X chromosome too, but he has a Y chromosome. Where does that come from? Biblically speaking, It took water, dirt, and the breath of life. I think the Y chromosome is the breath of life. It's the breath of life. Most High took a part of himself called breath and blew it into this earth. Whether you male or female, whether you male or female, you're part of this created earth, this creation. Wherever women came from. The Bible doesn't really say, but just scientifically translating it to the Bible, we're going to say what men and women have in common is that X chromosome. And I'm giving credit to the Y chromosome. I'm giving credit to that, to the breath of life. So the male is a combination of the female and Most High. Most High's very breath. And then women, we are the earth. We are the earth. And what makes us, positions us to submit, what compels us to submit by default to the man, one way or another, one way or another, because of the way the system is set up, whether scientifically, biblically, legally, it is set up for women to submit to men some kind of way, whether it's to your father, men in your family, community, a spouse. It's difficult for a woman to navigate on this earth surface without interacting with men. It's just very difficult. Everything is set up and designed for us to submit to them. Why? Let me tell you why. That's why. The Y chromosome. Men have the breath of life flowing through them. And in order for we women to even continue to walk around and evolve, we must connect with them. We must connect with them. Not only to keep ourselves going, but to keep them going too. So it's not a one-way street. In order for men to keep building and being rich and, doing their thing on this earth, they need to continue being born. They need to continue being born. And that's why they will always have this part of themselves that will, I won't say equally submit to women, but they will submit to women long enough to have children to keep themselves populated. It's almost as if men are responsible for their own population and women are responsible for their population. But in order for either a man or a woman to continue to live and to populate the earth, at some point, we must acknowledge what we have in common by being fruitful. Acknowledge what we have in common by being fruitful. But the only way to multiply is through submission. The male must slow down long enough to be fruitful with the woman so that he can multiply. Likewise, women must slow down long enough to submit in order to keep going, to keep living, and to have access to the breath of life. You know what I mean? It's all about the breath of life. That Y chromosome that males possess, carry, keep all of us breathing. Men must submit to some woman long enough to keep himself alive, to keep his ideas, dreams, creation alive. I won't say creation, but the things that, yeah, he create and build and make, you know. So we hear a lot about the word patriarchy and the roles of men and women. There are male roles. There are female roles. The way patriarchy is set up, the male has become the constant role, the role that doesn't really bend, the role that doesn't change much. Kind of like a tree, you know? A tree is planted in the ground, it stays right there, and it just grows and grows. So that's kind of like the role of the male, you know, a constant, unmovable, unchangeable, kind of. I mean, regardless to men's reputations of running around, cheating and stuff, that's not what I'm talking about. Men's roles can be copied. Men's roles can be copied by women. We see it all the time in Hollywood. Every once in a while, you'll see a woman dressed in men's clothes, you know, playing that role, even in real life, you know. But at the end of the day, due to the double X chromosome, women can never, ever, ever, ever be men. We can never be men because we have two X chromosomes. Male roles are constant, and it is a completely different contract than the woman. Because remember, no matter how much men and women have in common, they both have a head, they both have a neck, they both have shoulders, two arms, a stomach, two legs, 2 feet. No matter how much we have in common with that X chromosome, the man has a different role. He has a Y chromosome. The bottom of that Y chromosome looks like a straight line, like the trunk of a tree. And then the top of that Y chromosome, you know, has two arms that branch out. so that it can, continue to grow forever. Now, the woman, the female role, it can be copied. Oh, yeah. It's copied a lot more than women copy men. But men can be women by default. They have a Y chromosome. Men have a lot in common with women: a head, neck, shoulders, stomach, 2 legs and 2 feet. That X chromosome is powerful, powerful enough for a man not to only copy a woman, but by default is a woman too, which creates hate. Genetically, there's a hate because of that, of that. That X chromosome that men have that creates this commonality to women. It really does create a lot of hate when you want to be different and when you do not want to submit on any level. That Y chromosome is why men must submit to women, because he has a Y chromosome. He has common features as a woman. He can look like a woman. I mean, he is. You know what I'm trying to say? He just does not have two X's. The second X allows women to have babies. But women hate that they can only get close to God by way of a man. And women may say, "What? I have my own relationship with God. I don't need no man to have a relationship with God. I pray on my own, all that kind of stuff." You don't have a Y chromosome. That Y chromosome is the breath of life. And the Bible said that when God blew his breath into the earth, into some water and dirt and mist, dust and mist, he called that moment of conception man. That moment of conception, when the sperm, breath of life, was blown into the earth, water and dirt, the woman, the womb, Most High called that moment the man, creating separation, creating division is greater than the actual physical penis on the outside. It's just what God called. So yeah, women, kind of are pissed off that they have to submit to a man, someone that is so much like them. You know what I mean? Um, just to have access to the breath of life, to Most High. It's a inward, twisted way of thinking because we've learned how to separate everything out, you know, well, I think we were instructed to. Most High, of which we represent his image, he chose to make a clear distinction between the male and female, or the female and male. Even though we have a lot of similarities, I mean, like, we are similar in every way except reproduction. And then, Most High has a humor, so he, gave men maybe a few more muscles here and there, a little extra strength, because, his breath life is really strong, you know? So he had to inflate the picture a little bit. A lot of breath, a lot of very potent. So, anyway, guys, that's just a little bit, you know. But to getting back to the title though, so because women have two X chromosomes representing the earth, the womb, we are assigned to certain men to receive what we need from Most High. It's almost as if men are like the mediator between the earth and Most High, women and God. Men are like the mediator. He's connected to the woman genetically via the earth, but yet he walks around with the breath of life in him, the ability to keep mankind populated. So legally, now I can bring the law in. Legally, the law is trying to plant men in one place and then tax him for the rest of his life. But men are a lot more mobile than that. They're not just planted in one place forever to be overtaxed. You know, Men are mobile today. They move around. They have multiple families, you know? And so that's like getting into a whole nother conversation. But getting back to, so yeah, so women, it's our job by default to know these men and to help them be successful at obeying God, really, as Most High speak through them. I mean, that's where the breath of life comes through. As Most High speak through them, you know, we do our math, we calculate it, and figure out the outcome. That's how we help men build, as Most High interacts with him, use him, speak to him, do whatever he do with him. We really get to know him. And we're like interpreters, really. Women. Women are like interpreters. As men show different signs and things, we are to interpret it and make decisions. Again, it's all about being fruitful so we all can multiply. So this is just my little weird way of explaining how submission works. You know, men have that Y chromosome, which is the breath of life from Most High. And in order for women to have access to the breath of life, we must submit to men. In order for men to obey God and to build on this earth and to keep, you know, his contract, he must submit to a woman long enough to produce, keep himself alive, keep himself duplicated, have children, is what I'm trying to say. Have children, yeah. Have offspring. Men need offspring. Men need to keep making other men. It's not even in a woman. We have two X chromosomes. It's not even in a woman to produce men. It's not it's not natural for us to produce you. So you have to submit to us long enough to make more men. And so patriarchy want this to occur and happen at the cheapest cost possible. Men want boy babies to be born and raised at the lowest cost possible. And then when they become men, they feel like, hey, then I can do what I want. So, you know, depending on how a man is raised will determine will determine how he treat his own children. Either he's going to invest in his children to be wealthy, or he's just going to look out for himself and starve his kids. The more a man invests in his children, it's like he equates it to not having his best life, which again is how women think. You know what I mean? But men do it. They will walk away from a family, abandon a woman and a child because they don't want to invest their wealth, their labor, and their work into the family. They want that money for themselves. And a lot of these men don't want to pay their taxes either. They don't want to pay the government, they don't want to obey God, and they don't want to commit to the family. And then women, let me see here. Okay, so women listen to men. A lot of men, well, I won't say a lot of men, but men have a choice. Either men are going to represent Most High or they're not. And so the women that submit to men that are obedient to God get better results than women who submit to men who do not submit to or obey God. You're going to get the same old, same old. When a man is not utilizing his Y chromosome, his communication with God, then he's lost, and anyone that he's connected to is lost too. Lost doing the same old thing, not growing, not developing. But men that are connected to the Y chromosome that obey God and submit to God, then the women and children that follow him won't be lost. Things won't be hidden. Things that are hidden to those that are lost, they're not hidden to those who have the right male leadership. So does that mean that women have no chance of having a relationship with Most High if there is no man in her life at all? No, I wouldn't say all of that, but I would say the quality of her life is impacted. The quality of her life, because she's getting limited, she has limited access to the ways of Most High, the information and access, yeah, to the information and people that will make her life successful. So some men make it easier for women to obey Most High with clear instruction. And then other men, whether it's your father, brothers, cousins, husband, it doesn't matter who the male is, the title. Um, I mean, I know the world we live in put a lot of emphasis on, spouses and stuff, but for people who never obtain a legal spouse long enough to achieve anything, which is most people, then you have to rely on other male setup systems, like what your parent, your father's going to do, or your employer. Employers sometimes, well, employers are kind of like a substitute for when a woman does not have proper male leadership in her life. That's where an employer come in. So a good employer can also yield positive results in a woman's life. So it depends on how you look at it. So many ways to look at it, you know. Um, I think that's it. Just some random thoughts. And I'll get back to, if men are, or male roles are constant, then that means that the female roles need to be changeable, need to be more of a variable. So that's why men feel like, they can run through a lot of women, because they kind of like are legally, they're supposed to be the constant, but wives, women are more mobile. They can come and go easier. They're the variable. And you find today that more men are trying to be that way. More men want to be variable too. They don't want to be, providers, hold it down. You know, they don't want that. The responsibility of the Y chromosome, the main um, vessel, I guess you could say, the main vessel for the breath of life. The chosen vessel of the breath of life. Yeah. Now, are women and children breathing? Yeah, because that breath of life was blown where? Into the earth. That's how male, female, that's how we're in common, because of the earth. That's what makes us in common. What divided us and split us up was that breath of life, basically. Okay, guys. Oh, yeah, and I just want to say that levels of leadership usually attracts the submission that's needed for it. So, you know how like men are men, but not every man is exactly the same. Of course not. Every man has his own, he has his own life print. Just like he has a fingerprint, and toe prints and things, he has a life print. So each man is different. Each man has different abilities of leadership, different education levels, work skills, you know, different parents, born different parts of the world. So each man is different and requires submission based on who he is. So there is no cookie cutter husband, there is no cookie cutter wife. Although the law is set up to have these roles, despite the system, the roles, there are no cookie cutter husbands, there are no cookie cutter wives. And levels of leadership dictate levels of submission. So every woman will not submit exactly the same. Every woman does not require the exact same type of leadership either. So no matter how constant the role of a man may appear, each man is different. Even though women may appear to have more freedom to, bounce around, so to speak, um, we still have a role. We still have a role. And it's huge. It's called motherhood. And men may say, well, fatherhood is equally, you know, challenging. Yeah, in some areas. But there is that double X chromosome. The double X chromosome means that whatever a man experiences when it comes to parenthood, the woman experiences it times two. You know what I mean? Like more. So I believe that Most High set up this system this way, and it's by default and it's inevitable. So a woman, in order to provide for herself, if that's her choice, she still have to submit to an employer, which is usually a man. And there are women out here who may say, well, I own my own business and, I'm independent, I own my own business. But even owning your own business, you still somewhere in your life, there is a man that is over your business, whether it's a banker, a top client, something. It is very difficult for a woman to have a business without male support because far more men still to this day, have way more quote unquote, money, resources than women in that system. In that system, patriarchy is not the only system that exists, but it is the one that most of us, are a part of. We are a part of it. I'm not saying that there are not alternative systems out there, but I'm in America, and here it is still very, very um, set up this way. And I felt it in 2016 when Hillary Clinton lost the election. Regardless to the political parties, regardless to all that other stuff. When she lost, I realized that, oh, the system's not changing. Not anytime soon. So that's my take on it, guys, whether good or bad, right or wrong. That's how my little brain works as far as connecting dots, the biblical dot to the scientific dot to personal life dots and what I observe in the world, and then what statistics report back kind of thing. All right, so click like, hit that notification bell, subscribe, um, share my videos. My channel is growing. It's a slow growth, but it's growth, and I'm happy. Um, I'm not monetized anywhere on social media, but I do have a PayPal for those who just want to be a blessing. My PayPal is Dr. Leisha the Preacher. Thank you in advance. Thank you for your support, and you all have a blessed day. Bye.